Good morning. So, the high-tech graphics tell us new job. So this video will be just about that. If you're following the videos, you know I've already fitted the front sort of mounting place, and I had some discussion over whether to do the conventional U-bit or use some 40mm tube. Someone else, I would say, this person had a really good suggestion that instead of using this 25mm, I should have used the 40mm all the way across. Totally and utterly right suggestion. Unfortunately, I'd already welded all this in. So, I reckon I'm going to go for this 40mm thing. So these are the rose joints I'll be using. On the inside, these are 12mm, which I suspect is over-spec'd a bit because I know some use 10, but I'd rather these were too strong than too weak. So the idea is to cut this box section so it fits on the end of there and have a hole drilled through, so as the the rose joint fits inside. What that then does, as you might notice, is just a little bit of play, so I can have spacers top and bottom. So if I do for any reason decide that I want the pickup to be slightly higher or lower, basically I've got about 10mm to play with by sort of changing spaces and things like that. So it gives me a little bit of flexibility as well, which for you know, a first build, very prototype, is probably going to be quite useful. So that's the plan for this video. Now my plasma cutter is paving itself. I've cut a little U out of there and just clean the edges. And that fits over here. The rose joint, so that fits inside here. Like so. Like I say, I'll have spacers on there to get it dead right height. Then that fits over the end there. That seems to work okay. Obviously there's a little bit of a gap either side. I'm not sure. What I might do is just grind away that underside bit a little bit and then pinch those in. Obviously at the top I'll still have a bit to fill. It's a bit more than is ideal to be filling with weld, but I think that'll work fairly well. You might also notice, so I've drilled holes in the side as well. You might be wondering why that is. That's not my attempt to lighten things. The reason for that is then when that's in place, I can put a 12mm bar through there when I mount the rear, if you like, the rear front, whatever you want to call them, pickups, mounting points. I can put a bar through there to make sure I've got them absolutely bang in line and bang in parallel before I weld these onto these, which are the rear mounting ones. Anyway, hopefully this thing that I've been waffling on about for weeks and saying, tell me why I'm wrong, because I don't know why others don't do it the same way. Hopefully it all makes sense to you now, and I'm still looking at this thinking, well, it seems to be a pretty good way of doing it to me. Oh, and by the way, before anyone wants to shout about rose joints positioning, tell them they should be on the car that way, so they go up and down, not that way. Can I just say, when I first looked at rose joints, I assumed that was the way they had to be, but it's not. You're wrong, okay? They go this way round. If you want to tell me I'm wrong, you know where to tell me, down in the comments, but I might ignore you. No, I'll rephrase that. I will ignore you, No, I'll rephrase that again. I won't ignore you, but I might post a couple of pictures of 60s Lotus F1 cars that clearly show the suspension is all attached. That way round, not that way round. That's the first one all prepped and ready to go. Obviously it needs cleaning before welding. You might be wondering why I've randomly drilled 3 holes here. Well, where there's a fair bit of overlap, these holes allow me to, I think it's called plug welding. I'm not exactly sure of the name, but basically what it means is I can weld through there into the metal underneath, and which obviously increases the amount of weld I have. So I'm now going to get the one prepped for the other side before I then tack these in. So I've got the other side prepared now, and what I've done is on where they're going to be mounted, is I've very carefully marked across how far in they've got to go to get the right distance to the mounting point. Also the middle there and the middle here, so I can make sure they're exactly in line. The one bit that is going to be tricky is obviously making sure it's square. I think what I should be able to do is when I do a very small tack in the middle, and obviously if I put a ruler across all the way across, any slight error, because it's over quite a long distance, any small error is kind of really amplified. And when there's just one tack, you can just tap one way or the other just to get things lined up. Of course, don't be a wally like I've just been and clean the surface up with a grinder and completely grind away the nice careful scribe and pot mark you've just put on there for alignment. God, I can be a wally sometimes. We've got tack welding on each side and running the ruler all the way along. We've got a nice clean square sort of connection, if you like, so I know those are all nice and square. I'm tracking the distance from my scribe center line of the car to the scribe center line of the hole with 274 on that one, so it's a millimetre too smaller than it should be. And the other side is 274.5, so I'm quite happy with that. I deal with tolerances on this on most of the car. Certainly the suspension parts are, if I can be plus or minus 2 mil, I'm happy with that. Okay, so I put a couple more little tacks in there, so that's not going to move anywhere, but if I have screwed up somehow I can still cut it off if I need to. So next job now is to get the rear front, I suppose that's the right word, rear front suspension mounts in position. I've also got to put the lower ones on for here, so that'll be some more of these. When you're trying to tidy up, which if you've got ADHD like I have, tidying up is always a bit of a painful thing. What I want to know is where do pen lids go? I've already got one of these really funky pens, buggered, because I couldn't find the lid for the white one. Now the black one's gone. Oh, I did find the white one, but that's too late. I'm a bit of a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fan, and on that, it's obviously Douglas Adams must have had the same issues with biros, because there's a section in that where he talks about there being a planet where all the lost biros ended up. So it just gets me mulling over. Is there one for pen lids and 13mm sockets? Or do they all go to the same place? Anyways, I don't bloody know. But a bit of gaffer tape is going to be making a pen lid for that. But what I can guarantee is within 10 seconds of coming out here tomorrow, the pen lid that I've been looking for 15 minutes will leap out at me. So we're next afternoon out in the garage. No sign of my pen lid. And guess what? I have one glove. Where the Bloody hell's my glove gone? Glove must have eloped with a pen lid. Anyway, I've just chopped 4 of these. I thought what I'll do, I won't prep the one that will go up the top here because it might end up being slightly different. These are all going to be going on to straight upright bits. Either the front or the backs are all the same. So I'm prepping for those all in one hit to try and be super efficient. One of the tricky things with marking up box section is obviously it's got a curve on it, and I want to make sure my hole's pretty well central. So what I normally do, I got one of these set square things that you can move. So I'll stick that on 20. I'll just put a little mark, and then I'll swap it around and make sure that the mark lines up. I don't know if you can see there, but it does. That lines up nicely. So I'll then, that's then done, so I can mark up. I can then do all of them all in one hit. It saves quite a lot of mucking around. So I'm scribing these, and what I'll do is I'll pop mark the ends as well. And sometimes when you're working, these sort of scribe lines kind of disappear a bit sometimes. Right, so that's all done. Then the hole needs to be 12mm in from the end. So I can then set that on 12mm and do the same thing. And I'm going to scribe right the way across, because not just where the hole, where I need to pot mark it, because if you remember when I did the alignment on the other thing, I need to know where the centre of the hole is to make sure I've got the correct distance from the middle. Right, so I should give these a whack with a hammer where the holes need to be, but I'm also going to do the pot mark on each end. Oop, maybe not right on the end. So as I got references here. I think I mentioned before that I generally have music playing while I'm working. And this may be a bit of a sad suggestion, I think it'd be kind of fun. See if you can work out what I'm listening to from the waffle that I waffle on about. Or just see if it's a mystery to you after I've got to the end of the video. If you think you can work out, how do I do the angle here? Down there, down in the thingy. Have a guess at what music I'm listening to. I am doing these with the drill press at with a 5mm drill, so I'm sort of big piloting. I bought this quite small drill press, so I can't do the 12mm that easy, but because I'm getting a nice straight hole through like this, I'm happy that I can then just use a normal drill to do the other. You should have a nice straight hole from one side to the other. Well, I still haven't managed to find this glove. I've just spent 5 minutes looking around the garage. I mean, it's not like it's a mystery to me where these things go. Anyway, I have now got holes drilled, so I will now use 12mm to drill through the correct size. Even more important, a bit of lube on it, because 12mm is obviously bigger, but I don't have particularly great speed control on this drill. Oh, particularly strong wrist doing the vice up by the looks of it. that's all of them drilled out to 12 mil. So, and with the verniers, what I'm going to do is just quickly check the hole is pretty central. If any of them are a little bit out, then I'll use those for the side reference ones rather than the top ones that are actually holding the suspension. So we're about 14 mil, so that's good. So I've marked that up. That's the notch that's got to come out of them to fit onto the 25 mil. And I'm going to go for a bit of a hybrid approach here, because obviously the straight ones across, it's easy just to use a cutter on the angle grinder and get a nice straight line. And then for the cross bit there, I'm going to use plasma cutter. I did a little plasma cutter video, I don't know if you saw it. Somebody told me that I didn't need to be using the TIG welding mask when I'm plasma cutting. So, because of course I don't take anything I'm told on Facebook as gospel. I did a little bit of research and they're quite correct. Using that on 40 amps, it says I need a shade 5 eye protection, which, looking that up, is not a whole lot more than a pair of sunglasses really. Anyway, I've ordered them, so I will be using those, which hopefully means I'll be able to see a bit better when I'm doing it. Phil from Salisbury, I think it was, pointed out, yeah, where's the bloody end? There's like side rollers on. Yeah, you can kind of use these as a guide, or that as a guide. But on the on this stuff, the trouble is it's actually wide. You see there? There we are. It's quite a bit wider. So I did mess around the other day using a bit of U section, but it took me so long to get it set up, and it still wasn't brilliant. I think just doing these little bits by hand would be okay, but we'll see in a minute. Right, okay, let's make some sparks. So I'm going for a little bit of a halfway house, just using this as a bit of a guide. I can't really bolt it down, but it's fairly heavy. So let's just see how this goes. Yay, 2 gloves. Don't get too excited. I didn't find the other one. I just went indoors and got my spare pair. Anyway, that's all of those cut. So hopefully the gap should be slightly too small, which it is. So now what I'll do is just with the grinder is just trim that out a little bit until I've got a nice reasonable fit on all of them. Close. There we go, so that's what we're looking for. Quite a while ago I was waffling on about doing my suspension mounts like this and asking if I'd missed something, why isn't this a common way of doing it. I think now I can answer the question, because despite me thinking it's just a case of chopping a piece of metal and drilling holes, is actually not, of course, is it? And I think, not that I've made sort of more conventional mounts, but I'm pretty certain that this is a bloody sight more work than just bending a piece of metal for the conventional ones, or even there's always this balance, isn't there, when you're trying to do a project like this on a budget of time versus money. Of course, I could have ordered the conventional ones from several different sites and some eBay sellers. Not particularly expensive, obviously far more expensive than making these, like percentage wise. But it may be that the answer to my question is, why don't people do it like this? The answer is because it's just not worth the effort. Anyway, there we are. On the subject actually of ordering stuff from suppliers, yet again I've ordered from one of the larger kit car suppliers, and yet again a week and a half on I'm still waiting for stuff to arrive, having had no email or contact with them until I messaged them, and they've said, oh, it'll be leaving soon. Well, that was 4 days ago. If you use any of the sort of kit car suppliers or any of the kind of eBay shops and they've been good and actually dispatch stuff within a reasonable time, can you let me know who they are? Because every single one I've used has really not been very good at all. Got the bottom two all prepped and ready to weld in. I'm waiting for, I've got a thread inserts on order for the top, because as you may notice I won't be able to put the bolt to the top, it will go through the bottom. I know that's not exactly ideal, because obviously if it undoes itself it will fall out. So firstly I'm going to make it captive to make life easier. There is room to put a spanner and a nut on the top. But what I will do is I will drill the ends of these so I can put an R-clip through the end, so as if they do decide to come loose they're not going to drop out, because obviously that would be fairly catastrophic if those fell out. So I can't weld those in for now, so I've now started making another set of these for the rear support, which will go up kind of like this. So they're all ready. I'm going to weld those up now. I've been tacking out here. I've got the bottom mounts tacked on, and just now tacked on the support bracket for the front rear, right, passenger side. I've got to say, trying to get these on correctly and lined up is a right tricky old business. Trying to hold with the magnets, of course, because this thing is heavy that way, it keeps trying to fall over. Normally just about the point that I had it lined up it decides to belly flop over. I'll show you how I've lined it up though. First thing I've done is obviously I've marked, you see on there, scribe on there, so that's front and back where the driver's side will fit, but I've been using those to get this one in line. So what I've been doing is using those marks I just mentioned on there and my nice long ruler. I can use the ruler as a kind of a gauge, so by putting it and it's nice and square on one side I can make sure the end lines up with the marks there, which means if they do then this has to be correct to that direction, if you like. There can't be any twist. So basically what I did is I got it pretty well right and just put one tack on there, and then I could just maneuver it a little bit around, because when you've got one tack you effectively can kind of bend the metal on the tack just a little bit one way or the other, and then to make sure it's upright, that's not too difficult. Just using a good old set square on there and making sure that that is upright, which it is. So now I'm going to get the other side in. Hopefully from the lessons learnt of that one, this one will spend a little bit less time falling over and a little bit more time staying in place. So that's that side on with a couple of magnets, and use the ruler as a guide. I can check whether it's square or no, so I'm not sure if you can see. So on this side it's quite a bit out, which means you need to add a bit of twist. which is a little bit tricky with magnets, because magnets kind of don't want to move and then they suddenly move, but oh, it's all bloody moved again. So that's where I want it, on there. So now it's a case of I make sure it's upright, but don't breathe, because if you breathe the bloody thing moves until we can get that first tack in place. Here's one thing these magnets are quite good for, they are fairly square, so when you've got it stuck on the magnet they do keep things reasonably square. Right, so one tack in, take these off, check it's still aligned, it needs a tweak at this point. Just need a tiny little tweak. You do have to be quite careful of checking, because obviously it's quite a lot, effectively quite a lot of torque along this ruler. It's quite long, it's quite easy to just accidentally twist. What you might be able to do is here sometimes, so when I've got that lined up, I'm just touching the other side there. I reckon it's just about right, so I'll get another tack in. Recheck again, all the checking and rechecking and getting all this stuff aligned, definitely, I might have even been for a one-off like this, I might have been better off making a jig, but certainly if I ever decide I'm going to make another one, a jig, I think will make life a lot easier. Okay, so that's all still lined up. I'm going to put one more tack on there, so basically we've got 3 tacks around and then it's kind of a tripod, isn't it? The most stable shape. So I'm now putting these brackets on. I don't know if you remember right back when I first started doing this chassis, I said about datum lines. I know it needs to be 160 out, but obviously with nothing in the middle it makes it quite difficult, which is where the datum line comes in. So I can put my ruler across the bench on the datum line. I can use another ruler as an upright until it's bang in the middle of that hole and check that it's 160mm, which it is because I've adjusted it a second ago. Yeah, so I can then be confident that that is in the correct position, distance out. Then what I've done as well is I've set my set square up to be the correct height, so I can get that on the top and it's just touching and it's nice and square. Now just put one tack on there. Right, well, that wasn't the best tack in the world. I think there's a bit of dirt got on there. One of the problems I'm finding is obviously I forgot to re-clean that, but using these magnets, of course, all the swarf and everything in the garage all zings across, so if I don't clean it within about 10 seconds before I'm about to tack, I've quite often got contaminants in there. With only having one little tack on there, I don't know if you're able to see, is I can actually move by hand just a few degrees, so I can get that nicely on and then just put a couple more tacks on to make sure that it's then not going to go anywhere. Just in case any of you were worried about the location of my missing glove, I did find it in the end. It was hiding in there with my welding gloves. all I can imagine is when I go indoors after being out here, I have a changeling comes out here and moves things, because it's not me. I certainly don't do silly things like that. I now have the, still don't know the best name for this, rear front, whatever, suspension bit all put in. You may notice I actually took notice of the good idea, a suggestion that one of you guys made. The downside of doing it this way is obviously that weighs a little bit more than 25mm box section. We're talking of grams. I want the car to be light, but I'm not hung up about the odd few grams, and also certainly not weight on the front, because it's going to be really rear heavy, this car, with that big car lump in the back. So weight on the front, I'm going to be trying to devise ways of getting more weight on the front anyway. Like the fuel tank's going to be up here. Anyway, there I go, off on a tangent again. So that is front suspension mounts complete. Well, not complete, they're not fully welded in, but they're all tacked in. So the next one is going to be, as you can see, they're kind of in free space a bit. So I'm going to be putting in this cross strut here, which I've already got cut, just needs a bit of trimming. So it's going to come down onto there, and also there will then be a bit from here to go onto there to give that some strength at the top, or support at the top. Anyway, if you got this far in the video and you haven't already subscribed, please do so. It will really help my channel and it's good for my ego. Cheers and see you later. Bye.